Before sunrise off the Paraguana Peninsula, the Ford Strike Group's radar lights up. 11 hostile tracks inbound. Aegis links, SM-6 intercepts, sailors sprinting to stations 9 kills. 1 detonation on USS Gidley. The carrier is still in the fight, but the clock is ticking. What follows is the quietest decision of the day. Not air wings, not a barrage. One submarine. USS California goes black, fires 11 Harpoon Block II+ missiles, and ends Libertad 29 in minutes. This is the story of precision that saved thousands and kept a war from starting. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. With jets topped off, weapons crews done loading, and the deck chief calling launch times, the question lingers. Why choose silence when 54 fighters can roar? The answer sat inside a tight window that opened the moment Gidley took a hit and closed as fast as regional radars spun up. The carrier could still make wind over deck. The air wing stood ready. But every minute invited more sensors, more transmitters, and more eyes waiting to see where the next move came from. A visible strike would be fast and loud. It would also blaze trails across multiple screens from shore to shore, creating a heat map of intent before the first missile even left a wing. That's the trap. An air package brings speed and presence, but drags a long tail of signatures. Tankers drawing racetracks, AWACS arcs, deconfliction calls with civil controllers outside US control. Every layer adds time and broadcasts planning to people who only need a single cue to fire again. The commander's intent was simple: protect the carrier, stop the shooter, and prevent a wider fight justice without inviting a dogpile. That by itself narrowed the playbook to tools that hit hard without spreading noise. Submarines changed the equation because they compressed the kill chain in the dark. No public overflight, no stack of clearances, no diplomatic notes after a jet crosses a boundary line someone decides to dispute. Stealth means the shooter decides when the enemy learns it was targeted, at the moment of impact, not during launch. It also means battle damage is measured without immediate media feeds chasing contrails. In a crisis built on sensors and headlines, that control is a kind of armor. Look at timelines. To push an F-35C strike, the deck team needs to cycle aircraft, move fuel, arm weapons, run final checks, and coordinate tanker support. Tankers need tracks. Tracks need protected airspace. Protected airspace needs deconfliction that involves people outside the carrier group. That's minutes turning into tens of minutes while the target moves and the region wakes up. By contrast, a submerged launcher needs a firing solution and a green board, no clearance. No racetrack, no warnings on civilian scopes. When the order hit, California could shoot at 5:32, not 6:02. Risk lives in fences. Airframes must cross multiple radar cones, coastal arrays, shipborne sets, passive netted receivers that listen for emissions and reflections. Even if the jets run quiet, the tankers and escorts don't. The submarine sat inside maritime approach lanes where terrain masking and thermal layers help hide sound. And wake EM silence keeps the boat off the scoreboard. A launcher tucked into the noise of normal shipping creates fewer tells and shorter windows for the enemy to react. This is the doctrine at work. Decisive, surgical retaliation. Enough force to end the threat. Not enough to expand the fight. A hard, clean strike that gives commanders what they need, neutralized capacity, without giving adversaries what they want, visible escalation they can exploit. The sub fit that doctrine better than the air wing in that hour. It offered reach without spectacle, proof of effect without a replay of routes and nations overflown. The payoff started immediately. The carrier group stayed intact. Fighters remained on deck as a deterrent rather than a provocation, and the story turned from open-air war to controlled counterforce. The United States answered an attack without tripping every alarm in the hemisphere. The signal was discipline, not fireworks, and it closed the window for follow-on missiles from opportunists waiting for a glare they could shoot into. That doctrine only holds if the weapon can be in the right water at the right moment. with geometry that guarantees hits before the target sprints out of range. Which raises the next question. How did California line up a firing lane so clean that one order became a finish in minutes? How does one submarine erase a warship in under 4 minutes? It starts with position. USS California sat 40 nautical miles southeast of the fleet, trimmed at 125 meters where daylight never reached and the water column turned sound into layers. Below the mixed layer, the boat rode quiet in a thermal shelf that bent noise upward, letting it hear farther while staying hidden from hull-mounted sonars closer to the surface, approach lanes into the Gulf-bunched commercial traffic and masked any signature the crew didn't need to broadcast. From there, firing geometry on Libertad 29 held steady long enough to build a clean solution without breaking silence. Tracking never needed a ping. California's ANBQQ-10 stayed passive, sorting the target's propeller beat from 74 kilometers out, then feeding speed, course, and maneuvers into fire control. The target didn't run straight. It accelerated, then weaved to clear shadow zones around its own radar horizon. Any sloppy bearing, any cluttered sea state could have forced the seekers to hunt too long and miss the timing. The crew kept the geometry tight, held EM silence, and let the math do the work. When the order came, the weapon choice matched the problem. UGM-84, Harpoon Block II. Plus rides low, skimming the sea to stay under most radars while taking mid-course updates that keep it on a moving threat. In the last seconds, it jinks and drops, a terminal maneuver that frustrates last-ditch guns and decoys. Each missile carries a 221-kilogram fragmentation warhead, tuned to shatter decks, rip piping, and break a keel line by overpressuring compartments that weren't built to vent that kind of blast. California didn't bet on a single hit. It sent an 11-missile ripple, spaced and angled so no one defense could swat the whole wave. Staggered ingress meant point defenses had to chase multiple bearings. Soft kill decoys that fooled one seeker wouldn't help the next. Aim points walked along fuel corridors and tucked just below the waterline, where a breach brings the sea in fast and forces the crew to choose between power, propulsion, and staying afloat. Systems stayed in sync without raising flags. Fire control stitched passive track data to networked queuing in the background, trimming launch windows without lighting up a flight corridor or throwing radar into the air. No controller saw a stack of jets forming. No AWACS arcs telegraphed intent. The only warning the target got was the horizon carving itself into threats too low for comfort. Impact sequence told the rest. The first warhead tore through midships where fuel and piping run tight. Flame followed pressure, and the ship staggered as pumps tripped offline. The next detonations punched under the waterline, opening a 9-meter gash that let compartments flood on both sides of bulkheads. Power flickered, fire main pressure dropped, and damage control teams lost their footing as doors jammed and cables burned. Within minutes, structural stresses ran the length of the hull, turning rescue drills into a salvage problem. One missile can cripple a ship if it lands right. 11. Timed and scattered just enough to stretch defenses, end mobility, cut power, and smother firefighting before a crew can set boundaries. The ship that still floats in that state no longer fights. The ship that lists and breaks amidships goes quiet for good. The strike finished fast and stayed contained. No bases, no borders, no air corridors dragged into the fight. Speed came from planning. Certainty came from geometry and silence. The signature stayed controlled from launch to last detonation. The takeaway isn't about more explosives. It's about where you place the launcher, how you shape the approach, and the exact seconds you choose to fire, because that's what protects lives and keeps the next fuse from lighting. Precision beats spectacle. One quiet salvo kept a carrier group intact and stopped a regional fire from catching. The lesson is simple. Stealth, timing, and clean effects matter more than noise. So what should deterrence look like in the next maritime crisis if minutes decide outcomes?